I had been married to Lisa for 5 years when I was diagnosed with cancer. It was not just an ordinary bump in the road, it was a massive detour. We had built our lives around each other, traveling, laughing, and dreaming together. But cancer doesn't just challenge your health, it tests the very foundation of your relationships. My treatment was grueling, and I often found myself relying on Lisa more than I ever had before. I remember thinking that this would bring us closer, that we would emerge on the other side of this battle stronger than ever. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, it became clear that something was off. Lisa had started volunteering at the hospital where I was receiving treatment, which I initially thought was wonderful. She was always compassionate, eager to help others, and I appreciated her commitment. However, I began to notice subtle shifts in her behavior. She would come home late, her once cheerful demeanor occasionally replaced with an annoyed huff. When I asked about her day, her answers were vague and dismissive. I chalked it up to stress, thinking she was just overwhelmed by the demands of her volunteer work, or perhaps the weight of my illness was taking its toll on her. But then there were the little things. Her phone buzzed incessantly during dinner, and when I glanced at her, I saw the telltale flick of her wrist as she quickly silenced it. It felt like she was hiding something, and though I didn't want to believe it, that nagging feeling was hard to ignore. The thought that she might be unfaithful crept into my mind like a dark shadow, tainting the love I thought we shared. One evening, after another long day of treatment, I returned home feeling exhausted. I plopped down on the couch, hoping to share my day with Lisa, but she was nowhere to be found. I tried calling her, but she didn't pick up. I waited, hoping she'd come home soon, but hours passed. It was late, and I was getting worried. I decided to check my phone for any messages, and that's when I saw a text from an unknown number. The message read, "Can't wait to see you again tonight, Dr. Harris." My heart sank, and suddenly I was wide awake. I felt sick. Dr. Harris was my oncologist. I stared at the message, disbelief washing over me. Could Lisa really be having an affair with my doctor, the very person who was supposed to help me through this hell? I could hardly breathe as I sat there, my mind racing. I thought about how much I had relied on her during this time, how I trusted her completely. But now I felt betrayed, angry, and utterly crushed. I needed to confront her, but I had to wait until she got home. The minutes dragged on like hours, and I was a bundle of nerves. What would I say? How would she explain this? I imagined her excuses, how she might try to spin it into something that sounded less horrible than it truly was. But deep down, I knew the truth. When Lisa finally came through the door, she looked surprised to see me waiting. Her eyes darted around the room as if searching for a way to avoid my gaze. That was my first hint that something was wrong. I didn't waste any time. I blurted out what I had seen, the text message, and watched her expression change from confusion to panic. "What are you talking about? That's ridiculous." She snapped, instantly defensive. Her reaction felt rehearsed. There was a flicker of guilt behind her eyes, but she covered it with anger. "You're being paranoid. I'm just trying to help you through this." I pressed her further, my voice trembling with emotion. The confrontation spiraled into a chaotic mess of accusations and denials. She claimed I was misinterpreting the message, that it was just some hospital-related communication. "You know how stressful this has been for me, right?" she shouted, her eyes flashing with irritation. "You're making this into something it's not." But I could see through her lies. The weight of her betrayal hung heavily in the air, and with every excuse she threw my way, the reality settled in deeper. I felt my heart breaking into pieces, each fragment a reminder of our vows, our love, and the trust that had been shattered. I had to face the truth. Lisa was cheating on me. What I didn't know then was that this would be the beginning of my journey, not just through cancer, but through betrayal, revenge, and ultimately healing. I had been a man fighting for his life, but soon I would transform into a man fighting for his dignity. After that night, I was a whirlwind of emotions. I felt like I had been run over by a truck. The anger that surged through me was quickly replaced by a deep, penetrating sadness. Lisa and I had built a life together. We had our plans, our dreams. I couldn't fathom how she could betray me in such a visceral way, especially during a time when I needed her the most. The betrayal felt like a dagger to my heart, and I could hardly breathe under the weight of it all. I spent the next few days in a haze. I didn't want to talk to anyone, not even my family or friends. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the image of her with Dr. Harris, and it made me sick to my stomach. I couldn't focus on my treatment or the fight I was supposed to be winning. Instead, I became obsessed with discovering more about this affair. I scoured through Lisa's belongings when she was at work, rifling through her bag and her clothes, hoping to find more evidence. It felt like a betrayal of my own, but I couldn't stop myself. I needed to know the truth, even if it meant hurting myself further. One afternoon, while she was volunteering again at the hospital, I decided to drive over there. I wasn't sure what I was expecting to find, but I had to see for myself if she was truly with Dr. Harris. The hospital loomed before me, sterile and cold, a stark reminder of my own vulnerability. I parked and walked through the front doors, trying to act nonchalant, but my heart was racing. I made my way through the corridors, navigating the same space where I had spent so many hours receiving treatment. As I approached the oncology wing, I spotted them through the glass of Dr. Harris's office. There they were, Lisa, laughing, leaning in far too close to him, her hand brushing his arm. My heart dropped. The sight was like a cold slap in the face. I felt my stomach churn, and for a moment I thought I might actually be sick. She was supposed to be my rock, my support, and here she was, flirting with the man who was supposed to be saving my life. I could feel the heat of anger rising within me as I watched them. I wanted to storm in there and confront them both, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. Instead, I turned on my heel and left, feeling more lost than ever. I drove aimlessly, not even caring where I was heading. I had never felt more alone in my life. When I finally got home, I was trembling. I couldn't shake the image of them together from my mind. I wanted to scream, to cry, to do something that would somehow release the pent-up rage and heartbreak. But what could I do? I was still in the middle of my cancer treatment, fighting for my life, while she was busy making a mockery of our vows. That night, I confronted her again when she returned home. She walked in, completely unaware of the turmoil brewing inside me. I waited until she had settled down, and then I launched into my accusations. "I saw you with Dr. Harris today," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. "You can't deny it. You were flirting with him." Her face drained of color, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of guilt, but she quickly recovered. "That's not what it looked like. You're imagining things. He's just being friendly. You know how doctors are with their patients," she said, her voice rising defensively. I couldn't believe her audacity. "Friendly? Lisa, you were practically sitting on his lap. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending it was anything else." I was losing my composure, but I had to keep pushing. "How could you do this to me? How could you betray me like this?" She folded her arms, her usual defensive posture. "You're being irrational. I'm here taking care of you, and you think you can just accuse me of cheating. You're the one who's sick, and I'm the one who has to deal with it. You're being completely unfair." The conversation spiraled into chaos, with her throwing every excuse she could muster. It was as if she was trying to justify her actions by making me feel guilty for even questioning her. I felt like I was walking on a tightrope, teetering on the edge of rage and despair. I wanted to scream that she was the one being unfair. I was the one fighting for my life, and she was the one who was supposed to stand by me. After what felt like hours of back and forth, I finally stepped back, realizing that I wasn't going to get through to her. She was too entrenched in her lies, too unwilling to own up to what she had done. I felt an overwhelming sense of futility wash over me. This was not how I envisioned my life, especially not during such a dark time. In the days that followed, I continued my treatment, but my mind was no longer on beating cancer. I was consumed by thoughts of revenge. I had trusted Lisa completely, and she had thrown it all away for a cheap thrill with my oncologist. I knew I needed to channel my anger into something productive, something that would make me feel empowered. I wouldn't simply let this betrayal wash over me. I would make her feel the consequences of her actions. As I plotted my revenge, I felt a sense of clarity. I was no longer just a husband fighting cancer. I was a man who had been wronged, and I was determined to take action. I would find a way to turn the tables, to reclaim the power she had stolen from me. This was only the beginning of my journey, and I was ready to confront the chaos that awaited. The days following my confrontation with Lisa were a whirlwind of emotional turmoil and obsessive planning. I felt like a different person. The gentle, trusting husband was gone, replaced by someone fueled by the need for revenge. My focus shifted from simply surviving cancer to plotting how to make Lisa feel the weight of her betrayal. I had to show her that her choices had consequences. I started by gathering evidence. I became a detective in my own home, carefully observing her every move, noting her patterns and routines. Lisa had become more secretive, spending more time on her phone and often leaving the house under the guise of volunteering. I used this to my advantage. I set up a hidden camera in the living room, disguised as a regular clock. I figured if I couldn't confront her directly without further escalating the situation, I could at least catch her in the act. The thought of watching her squirm in front of her lies filled me with a sense of satisfaction. In the meantime, I also delved into researching emotional manipulation tactics. I wanted to understand how she could so easily toss our marriage aside. I stumbled upon articles about gaslighting, which perfectly described the way she had manipulated conversations to make me question my reality. I noted down techniques on how to confront someone who was emotionally unfaithful, preparing myself for the moment when I would bring this all into the light. As I sat through my chemotherapy sessions, my mind became more fixated on my revenge than my own healing. I no longer felt the same sense of dread about the treatments. I was more concerned with plotting the perfect way to unveil Lisa's deception. I couldn't help but fantasize about the moment when I would confront her with all the evidence I had collected. The thought of watching her face drain of color as she realized that her lies were laid bare before me was intoxicating. Then came the day I had been waiting for. I had an appointment with Dr. Harris, my oncologist. I had spent weeks dreading seeing him again, knowing that he was part of the betrayal. But now I saw this as an opportunity. The plan was simple. I would confront him about his relationship with Lisa. I needed him to understand that I was aware of what was happening, and I wanted him to feel the weight of his actions, too. I was not just going to let it slide. When I arrived at the hospital, my heart raced with anticipation. I walked through the familiar corridors, fighting the urge to turn back. I headed straight to Dr. Harris's office, my palms sweaty and my mind racing with what I was going to say. I knocked on the door and he called for me to enter. "Hey, Alex, good to see you. How are you feeling today?" he asked, his usual cheerful demeanor in stark contrast to the storm brewing inside me. I took a deep breath, my pulse quickening. "I need to talk to you about something," I said, my voice steady but laced with anger. "It's about Lisa." His expression shifted slightly, a flicker of surprise and concern flashing across his face. "Is everything okay with her?" I leaned in closer, my eyes narrowing. "No, everything is not okay." "I know about your affair with her," I said, my voice low but firm. His eyes widened, and for a moment I thought I saw a hint of guilt. "Alex, save it," I interrupted. "I don't want to hear your excuses. You're supposed to be helping me, not sleeping with my wife. How could you do this?" He opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. Instead, he looked visibly uncomfortable, shifting in his seat. "I can assure you, Alex, that my priority has always been your health. Anything else is. Anything else. You think I care about your priorities. You think I believe you." I shot back, unable to contain my frustration. "You've crossed a line and you need to understand that." I could see the wheels turning in his mind, and I hoped he felt the weight of his actions. "I didn't mean for this to happen," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I should have set boundaries. I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't cut it. You've ruined my life. You've taken advantage of my vulnerability, and I will not let you get away with it." I spat, feeling empowered. This was the confrontation I needed, even if it wasn't with Lisa directly. At that moment, I felt in control for the first time in weeks. I left his office feeling a surge of adrenaline. I had confronted Dr. Harris, and I felt a sense of satisfaction, but I knew I wasn't done yet. My next move was to unleash everything I had against Lisa. I wanted to destroy her carefully curated facade, to expose her for the person she had become. When I got home, I could sense Lisa's usual energy. She was light-hearted, humming to herself in the kitchen as she prepared dinner. I stood at the threshold, contemplating how to approach her. This was it, the moment I would bring everything crashing down. "Lisa," I said, my voice steady but laced with an edge of hostility. She turned, her smile faltering slightly. "Hey, how was your appointment?" she asked, her casual tone grating on my nerves. "Let's talk," I said, my heart racing as I prepared to unleash the storm. "We need to discuss your little friendship with Dr. Harris." Her face paled, and I could see the gears turning in her mind as she prepared her defenses. This was the moment I had been waiting for. She was going to have to face the consequences of her actions, whether she was ready or not. The air thickened with tension, and I knew we were teetering on the edge of chaos. I was ready to take her down, and I wouldn't stop until she understood the magnitude of what she had done. The tension in the room was palpable as I faced Lisa, my heart pounding with a mix of anger and determination. She looked at me, and for a moment I thought I saw a glimmer of fear in her eyes. It was as if she sensed that the moment of reckoning was upon us. I had waited too long for this confrontation, and I was not going to let her sidestep the truth any longer. "Lisa," I started, my voice steady, "I know about you and Dr. Harris. I saw you with him at the hospital, and I received the text you sent to him." I watched her face drain of color, and for a fleeting second I felt a flicker of satisfaction. This was the moment where her carefully constructed lies would begin to unravel. "What are you talking about?" she stammered, her bravado slipping away. "That's ridiculous. You're being paranoid." "Paranoid? You think I'm paranoid?" I pressed, feeling a surge of confidence as I continued. "You've been lying to me this whole time. I caught you flirting with him, and I confronted him about it today." Her expression shifted from shock to anger, and she crossed her arms defensively. "You don't know what you're talking about. He's just a doctor trying to do his job, and you're the one making this personal. This is all in your head." I took a step closer, my voice low but firm. "No, Lisa, this isn't in my head. You've been spending all this time at the hospital, and you've taken advantage of my vulnerability. You think I don't know what's really going on. I trusted you, and you betrayed that trust in the worst way possible." She shook her head, her expression morphing into one of irritation. "You're just angry because you're sick and looking for someone to blame. You want to turn this into something it's not because you can't handle the truth." I felt my blood boil at her attempt to gaslight me yet again. The truth is that you've been cheating on me while I'm fighting for my life. The truth is you've broken every vow we took together." I fought back tears of rage as I laid into her, feeling the weight of my emotions spilling out. "You think you can twist this around and make me the villain? That's not how this works." Her eyes hardened and she took a step back. "This isn't just about you, Alex. I've had to deal with the stress of your illness, and it's been overwhelming." The audacity of her words struck me like a slap to the face. "Overwhelming? You think that gives you a pass to betray me? You think you can just waltz around while I'm here fighting for my health and my life?" I could feel the anger bubbling over, and I took a deep breath to steady myself. "I deserve better than this, Lisa." She scoffed, trying to regain some semblance of control over the conversation. "What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? You want me to apologize for being overwhelmed? I'm not a monster, Alex." "Then stop acting like one." I shot back. "You need to take responsibility for your actions. This isn't just some misunderstanding. You made a choice, and now you need to face the consequences." The confrontation escalated, with both of us hurling accusations and defenses at one another. I could feel my emotions swinging wildly between anger and pain. I had never imagined our relationship would descend to this point, yet here we were. The woman I had loved and trusted was standing before me, and she was not the same person I had married. Eventually, the shouting subsided, leaving a heavy silence in the air. I could see the realization dawning on her face. She knew I wasn't backing down, and she couldn't continue spinning her web of lies. "What do you want from me, Alex?" she finally asked, her voice wavering as she appeared to ponder her next move. "I want you to come clean, Lisa. I want you to admit what you've done," I said firmly. "I want you to understand that this isn't just a phase, this is a betrayal." That has shattered everything we built together. It's not something you can just brush under the rug." She hesitated, her expression softening momentarily. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered, and I felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this was the moment of clarity I was seeking. But then she added, "I was just trying to cope with everything, and Dr. Harris was kind to me. He listened to me when I felt like I was losing it. I thought it was harmless." My heart sank as she spoke. "Harmless? You thought flirting with my oncologist while I'm undergoing treatment was harmless?" I couldn't believe what she was saying. "You've crossed a line, Lisa. This is so much bigger than you're making it out to be." She looked away, her face a mixture of shame and defiance. I could see the battle within her. "I don't know what to say, okay? I messed up. But you're not exactly innocent in all this either." The words struck me, and I couldn't help but feel the sting of her accusation. "How dare you turn this back on me? I'm the one facing cancer, and you're the one who chose to cheat. You're the one who decided to betray our marriage." The anger flared up again, and I could feel my insides churning as I processed her confession. I had hoped for remorse, but instead I was met with a wall of defensiveness. I couldn't allow her to twist this around any longer. "This conversation is far from over," I said, my voice low and steady. "You need to think about what you want moving forward. And you need to understand that there will be consequences for your actions." As I turned away, I felt the weight of everything crashing down on me. I had confronted her, but I knew this was just the beginning. I felt empowered but also deeply hurt. I had to figure out what the next steps would be for me. Whether that meant ending our marriage or finding a way to rebuild, I had to make a choice. But one thing was clear: I wasn't going to let Lisa's betrayal define me. I was still fighting cancer, but I was also fighting for my dignity, my self-respect, and my future. I needed to take control of my life again, and that meant making decisions that would shape my path moving forward. This was a turning point, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. In the days following my confrontation with Lisa, I felt like I was walking a tightrope between anger and heartbreak. I had laid everything on the table, and yet her response had left me with more questions than answers. I spent my time in a haze, drifting between treatment sessions, emotional turmoil, and a newfound clarity about what I wanted for my future. I realized that I couldn't let the situation drag on indefinitely. I needed to take action, not just for me, but for my own well-being. I spent countless hours contemplating my next steps. I didn't want to keep living in a toxic environment where trust had been broken beyond repair. It became clear to me that I had to make a decision, and I had to do it soon. That weekend, I decided to visit my parents. I hadn't seen them since my diagnosis, and I felt the urge to reconnect with my roots, to reclaim a sense of normalcy in my life. It was a much-needed escape from the chaos. My parents welcomed me with open arms, showering me with love and concern. I felt a flicker of comfort as I settled into their home, surrounded by the familiar smells of my mother's cooking and the warmth of their presence. Over dinner, I found myself opening up about everything: the cancer, the treatments, and most importantly, Lisa's infidelity. I watched their faces fall as I recounted the entire story, from the moment I found the text to the confrontation that followed. My mother's expression shifted from concern to disbelief, and my father's jaw tightened. It was hard for them to comprehend why Lisa would betray me, especially during such a vulnerable time. "How could she do this to you, Alex?" my mother asked, her voice laced with concern. "You deserve so much better." "I know," I replied, fighting back tears. "But I think I've been so focused on surviving that I neglected to see the cracks in our relationship. I trusted her to be there for me, and she turned her back when I needed her the most." My father nodded thoughtfully. "It's a betrayal that cuts deep, but you need to think about what you want moving forward. Do you really want to salvage the relationship, or is it time to let go and focus on yourself?" Those words resonated with me. I had been so consumed by my anger and disappointment that I hadn't fully considered what I truly desired. Did I want to forgive Lisa? Did I want to attempt to rebuild what had been lost, or was it time to cut my losses and move on? As the days passed, I found solace in my parents' presence, but I also realized that I had to make my own decision. I returned home with a clearer mind, ready to confront Lisa one last time. I needed to lay out my intentions and give her an opportunity to understand the gravity of her actions. When I walked through the front door, Lisa was waiting for me. She had clearly been crying, her eyes were puffy, and there was an air of defeat about her. "We need to talk, Alex," she said, her voice shaky. "Fine," I replied, my heart racing. This was it, the moment where I would finally articulate what I wanted. I took a deep breath and began. "I've had some time to think, and I need to be honest with you. I don't think I can continue living like this." Her face fell as she processed my words. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I mean that I can't keep pretending everything is okay. Your infidelity has shattered my trust in you. I fought so hard to survive cancer, and I refuse to let this betrayal drag me down any longer." My voice was steady as I spoke, and I felt empowered by my clarity. Lisa opened her mouth to speak, but I held up my hand to stop her. "I'm not done. I need to prioritize my well-being. I can't be in a relationship where I'm constantly second-guessing your loyalty. It's not healthy for me, and it's not fair to either of us." Tears began to stream down her face, but I pressed on. "I want you to understand that this isn't just about the affair. It's about how you made me feel during the most vulnerable time of my life. I need to focus on healing, and I can't do that while feeling betrayed." She took shaky breath, her expression a mixture of sorrow and regret. "Alex, I know I've messed up beyond repair. I never meant to hurt you, and I've realized just how selfish I've been. I'll do anything to make it right." I shook my head, feeling a mixture of sadness and frustration wash over me. "Making it right isn't as simple as that. You've broken my trust, and I'm not sure it can ever be rebuilt. I think it's best for both of us if we separate. I need space to heal and find myself again." The silence that followed felt heavy, suffocating. Lisa's gaze dropped to the floor as she processed my decision. "I understand," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I'm so sorry, Alex. I never wanted it to come to this." I felt a pang of compassion as I looked at her. The woman I had loved was still there, but she was also a stranger who had made choices that hurt me deeply. "I'm sorry too, Lisa. I wanted us to pull through this together, but it just isn't possible anymore." As I spoke those words, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It was painful, yes, but it was also a necessary step toward healing. I had fought for my life, and now I needed to fight for my emotional well-being. I had decided to reclaim my power and move forward, even if it meant facing the unknown. In the days that followed, I began to navigate the realities of separation. I focused on my treatment, pouring my energy into my recovery. I reached out to my friends and family for support, allowing them to help me through this tumultuous time. I even started attending a support group for cancer patients, where I found solace in sharing my experiences with others who understood what I was going through. The journey ahead would be challenging, but I was determined to emerge from this experience stronger than before. I had learned valuable lessons about trust, vulnerability, and the importance of prioritizing my own mental health. I realized that I had the power to shape my future, and I was ready to embrace it. As I reflected on everything that had transpired, I knew that I was not just fighting cancer. I was also reclaiming my life. In the midst of heartbreak, I would find healing, and in that healing, I would discover new connections that were healthier and more fulfilling than anything I had known before. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was no longer afraid. I was ready to face whatever came next with courage and resilience. The weeks turned into months, and with each passing day, I felt a little stronger. The separation from Lisa, while incredibly painful, had opened the door for me to rediscover myself. I focused on my health, attending treatments with renewed determination. I made it a point to reach out to friends and family, leaning on them for support in ways I hadn't before. The support group became an unexpected lifeline. Discussing my experiences with others who were fighting their own battles was cathartic. I began to share not just the struggles of cancer, but also the emotional fallout of my marriage. I found a community that understood the complexities of vulnerability, betrayal, and healing. It felt good to connect with people who recognized the weight of these experiences, and it encouraged me to keep moving forward. As I started to find my footing, I also took the time to reflect on my past with Lisa, I acknowledged the love we had shared, the laughter and the dreams we built together, but I also recognized that our relationship had become toxic. I had poured so much of myself into it, especially during my illness, that I had lost sight of my own needs and desires. Now I was reclaiming that lost sense of self. One day, as I sat with my therapist, I felt a surge of clarity. "I think it's time I start dating again," I said, surprising even myself. The idea had been lurking in the back of my mind for weeks, but I had hesitated, unsure of how I would navigate relationships after everything that had happened. "I want to experience healthy connections this time around." My therapist smiled gently. "That sounds like a wonderful idea. Taking the time to understand what you want and need in a partner is essential. Remember, this is about you and your journey. You deserve happiness." The thought of dating made my heart race with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Would I ever trust someone again? Could I open my heart after feeling so deeply betrayed? But I was determined to try. I decided to create a profile on a dating app, something I never thought I'd do. The first few messages I received made me nervous, but it also felt exhilarating to explore this new chapter. I started chatting with a few people, finding comfort in the casual conversations that didn't involve the weight of my past. I was learning to laugh again, and it felt liberating. Eventually, I set up a few casual dates. There was Kayla, a fellow cancer survivor who was warm and understanding, and Tom, a fitness enthusiast who radiated positivity. I quickly learned that I was no longer the same person I had been before my diagnosis. I approached dating with a sense of caution, but also with an open heart. Each encounter brought its own set of challenges, but I found solace in knowing that I was no longer the man who was willing to accept betrayal. I was learning the importance of clear boundaries, honesty, and communication. I refused to settle for anything less than what I truly desired. As time passed, I met someone special, Maya. She was kind, intelligent, and had a beautiful resilience about her that resonated with my own journey. We connected over shared experiences, and I felt a spark that I hadn't felt in a long time. I was hesitant at first, but she made it easy for me to lower my guard. We talked openly about our pasts, and she encouraged me to share my feelings without fear of judgment. With her, I felt safe. I appreciated that our connection was built on mutual respect, and it was as if we were both healing together. I started to understand that love could be different, healthier, supportive, and nurturing. Meanwhile, Lisa reached out a few times, trying to reconcile and discuss our relationship. Each time, I felt a swell of emotions, anger, sadness, pity, but I had learned to stand firm. I needed to prioritize my well-being, and I had to remind her that our relationship had been irreparably altered. I kindly told her that I needed to focus on my healing and my new relationship. The last conversation I had with her was bittersweet. I could sense her frustration and pain, but I also felt a sense of closure. I had moved on, and as hard as it was for her to accept, I was no longer the person I used to be. I was stronger, wiser, and more aware of my worth. One evening, as I sat on the couch with Maya watching a movie, I felt a wave of gratitude wash over me. I had fought so hard for my life, and through that struggle, I had found a deeper understanding of love and connection. I realized that the journey had shaped me, and while the scars of betrayal and illness would always remain, they would not define my future. I learned to embrace each day with hope and resilience. I understood that life was unpredictable, but I was ready to face it head-on, armed with the lessons I had learned during my darkest hours. I had fought for my health, my dignity, and my joy, and I was determined to cultivate a life filled with genuine connections. In the end, I wanted to share my story to remind others that even in the face of betrayal and hardship, it is possible to find healing, happiness, and love again. Life could be beautiful, even after the storms. I had emerged from my battles scarred but not broken, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next with an open heart.